So, Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy Earthrise released right at the end of the last year. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it. The video I did on the first chapter was kind of a poor test run of the channel's reboot, and I think looking back at it, I'd rather forget about it. But it is where the channel rebooted, plus, like my channel update video said, I wanted to do more variation of stuff, so screw it. Here is a review of Earthrise. And yes, from here on out there will be spoilers. First off, the name of the entire series is bloody stupid. I think I complained about it before, but that was like half a year ago, so I'm going to do it again. It shares a name with a video game series, and the trilogy bit on the end, that shares a name similar to another Transformers show which had trilogy on the end. And honestly, that wasn't released that long ago. I think it was like 3 years ago, so you know, people can get confused. They're very similar, but as far as I'm aware, there's no relation. Also, the name Earthrise sucks for two reasons. One, Earth is in it for like a minute or two, and the second reason is because it sounds way too similar to a Rush song called Earthshine, which my mind jumps to every time I think of the series. Which is a good thing, because that's a really good song, that is. Right, now that we got that out of the way, let's actually talk about the show. It takes place sometime after Optimus Prime had thrown the Allspark into space, and he, his crew and the Ark have disappeared. A very small group of Autobots led by Elita 1 and Jetfire have been breaking into prison camps, learning that Megatron had been putting his own people into prison. Eventually they all get captured and learn that Megatron has been draining his people's own lifeblood to power a spaceship called Nemesis. Meanwhile, Optimus and his crew has been captured by mercenaries and have been taken to Quintesson, the creators of the Transformers race, who, unfortunately for them, have lost a war against their creations quite some time ago. Unsure what to do, as the Quintesson has got multiple faces and personalities, the evil one decides to bugger it, let's cut off my siblings' faces, and it kills them all. Yeah, that's a pretty grim scene, I'm not gonna lie. Eventually, she, I think? Whatever, I'll just call it it. It tries to kill Optimus, only for the mercenaries that captured them originally save the entire crew. Yeah, that was kind of a pointless scene, I'm not going to lie. Cool scene, but pointless. After that, they go to a space bridge to try and get the Allspark as quick as possible, only to find that a space station has been lodged in the entrance. To remove it, the crew has to place bombs in certain places and blow it up. During the process, they get attacked by Scorponok, and then eventually by Megatron. Yeah, he finds them after a bit. Getting annoyed that Megatron isn't dead, Starscream fires the Nemesis cannons and sends the Ark to the dead universe. Yeah, I didn't skip a page, that kind of what happened. Yeah, they bring the dead universe in here, and for those that don't know, I'll explain it a bit later on. In the dead universe, Optimus meets Skylings, who gives Optimus a vision of the future. Megatron also receives a vision, but from a future version of himself as Galvatron, who is being controlled by Unicron at this point of time. Galvatron explains to Megatron that he must take the Matrix leadership and find a golden disc. He doesn't know what to do with them or anything, but he just tells them to do exactly that. After leaving the dead universe, both sides are attacked by the Quintesson from the earlier, leading to a fight where Megatron unfortunately gains the Matrix and they all crash land on a prehistoric Earth. This is a rough sum of the season, and I'm missing some parts from it, such as Elita 1's full story, because he does a lot more in the series, and the character interactions between Optimus and Megatron. But yeah, it's a pretty solid season. Characters are just as well written as before. The story is still a conflict of ideology and not good versus evil, which is rather refreshing for the series. I mean, Megatron is draining the lifeblood of his people, but he doesn't want to do it. They show a lot of scenes of him feeling horrid about it. It's a desperate act of a desperate man due to the Allspark being removed. Hell, Optimus admits to Megatron that he was wrong for removing the Allspark. That's something we've never seen before. The writing has made both characters rather human for once, and for the first time in the franchise's history, I don't agree with Optimus's actions. That's not to say I'm on Megatron's side for draining the blood of his people. but he only did that in the end because Optimus removed the Allspark, basically nearly killing off his entire species in the process. There's a few minor issues I have with the show, such as the voice acting's a bit funny. I like Megatron's. He's really suited to the. He's very tame to compare to other versions, but he very suits the character that's being written. Optimus is kind of all over the place. They can't decide whether to go for classic Optimus or reboot God of War Kratos. Seriously, I'm not joking. Optimus sounds like Kratos when he's shouting. It's a touch inconsistent, like I can't decide which one I'm watching. Another is Galvatron's entire appearance. It clashes aesthetically with the show. His intro is like a bloody anime pose from Yu-Gi-Oh! When they summon a special monster or something. I think what they were trying to go for is they were trying to recreate Galvatron's creation scene from the original 80s movie, which, if you've seen that scene, is still rather good to this day. But it just comes off really silly here because I think all the posing and that. Also, Galvatron looks far too clean. I felt like his entire appearance was done badly, which is a real shame because the rest of the show's handled brilliantly. Like, Galvatron kind of comes out of nowhere, so I'm interested to see if they do anything with that. I hope they do, because if it pays off in the next season, I think I'll look back at this bit and think better of it, if you know what I mean. I'll also admit that there weren't many major character deaths or anything like that. Nobody major gets killed off or anything like that, as far as I'm aware. The only significant scene really was the Quintesson cutting his own faces off, and that one scene with the Scorponok and that one Autobot, but nothing major really. But now we get to what I deem the major issue of the show, the introduction of the Dead Universe in particular. The Dead Universe was made in 2005 for one of the comic series, and while I haven't read that particular comic series, I am aware of the story and stuff like that before I watch this show. See, in that comic, the Dead Universe is a host to a world of corpses after Shockwave drained life from another dimension, the Dead Universe. The Dead Universe also plays host to a being known as the Darkness, or the Void, or as it's nicknamed as. The backstory goes that the Void is using its influence to contact a transformer called Nova Prime to find it. After entering the Dead Universe, the Void corrupts Nova with an object called the Heart of Darkness, which is basically an evil matrix of leadership, turning Nova into Nemesis Prime. See, the Void wants to combine the world of the living and the dead and rule over both. That's kind of the main plot of that series. I was expecting the story to kind of go for that. Not only would it have been a breath of fresh air, but it suits the darker tone of the show. Yeah, it's silly, but there's a dark silly and there's silly, and I think that could have really worked for the show. I thought that's what was going to happen when Galvatron basically appeared in front of Megatron. An event I don't think has ever been done before in the show. I can't think of a time when Galvatron and Megatron interacted with each other. You see, in the comic, Galvatron was his own entity. He wasn't Megatron, like it normally is. Galvatron was a member of Nova Prime's crew that was corrupted by the Void. But now it's revealed that he's from the future and Unicron is the big baddie. Again, I get why Unicron was used, but I don't know. I think it would have been way cooler to use the Void. I think that's my issue with Transformers altogether. Hasbro only cares about selling toys and not telling cool stories. So they force the more bankable designs and characters they can into these shows. It's the same issue I have with superhero comics and stuff. They're basically rebooted into oblivion so much that what's the point in the stories? They're just there to sell stuff. I mean, pretty much all films are, but you can still put a good story behind it. And even then, surely Hasbro could have come up with some new stuff for the Void and the Dead Universe. You know, create some new Transformers and stuff, new cool designs based around the Generation 1 kind of concept. Hell, you could have kept Galvatron's design. It's recognisable and stuff like that. And who kind of cares that it's not the Megatron Galvatron? If they're telling a completely different story anyway, they might as well use it. It's still recognisable as Galvatron. It would have been something cool. So overall, I do think this series is really good, and I think you should give it a watch. And if you got no prior knowledge of the Void, you won't have the same issue I've got. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity. I get that basically they're doing a darker reimagining of Generation 1, because that's what it is. It's basically the Generation 1 series, and it seems to include Beast Wars in it. That's not a bad thing, that's a pretty cool idea, I'll give it that. I don't know, it would have been a nice twist to have the Void as the main villain in the end. That's all. Anyway, I hope you liked the video and everything. Like and subscribe if you want more content. Goodbye.